Jai Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda ki Jai, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya-dishatarine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Kiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandir Harati Kashobha Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandir Harati Kashobha Jana Vitatavane Jagamana Lobha Jagamana Lobha Kiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandir Harati Kashobha Jana Vitatavane Jagamana Lobha Rarutik Shobha Jagajanamana Lobha Gorangera Rarutik Shobha Jagajanamana Lobha Gorangera Rarutik Shobha Jagajanamana Lobha Rarutik Shobha Jagajanamana Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Dakine Nitai Chan Bhamigaradhara Dakine Nitai Chan Bhamigaradhara Nikate Advaita Shrini Vasa Chatradhara Nikateya Boshi Yache Gorachan Ratna Simhasane Boshi Yache Simhasane Arati Korein Brahma Adi Devagane Arati Korein Brahma Adi Devagane Nara Chamaradulaya Narari Hari Kori Chamaradulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Bashu Gosharigaya Shankar Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Bhaje Karatala Shankar Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Shankar Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Bhaje Karatala Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Bhaje Karatala Madhura Mridanga Bhaje Paramarasala Madhura Mridanga Bhaje Paramarasala Shankar Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Shankar Bhaje Ghanta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Madhur 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 Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nita Gora Hari Bo Nita Go Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nita Gora Hari Bo Bahu Koti Chandra Jini Vadana Ujvala Bahu Koti Chandra Jini Vadana Ujvala Bahu Koti Chandra Jini Vadana Ujvala Gala Deshe Bhanamala Kore Jalamala Deshe Gala Deshe Bhanamala Kore Jalamala Shiva Shuka Narada Preme Gada Gada Shiva Shuka Narada Preme Gada Shiva Shuka Narada Preme Gada Gada Shiva Shuka Preme Gada Bhakti Vinoda Dikhe Korara Sampada Bhakti Vinoda Dekhe Korara Sampada Bhakti Korara Sampada Kiva Jaya Jaya Gora Chande Artika Shobha Jagajana Nitai Gora Haribo. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Sata Shri Srimad Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopu Gopinatha Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Ki Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Nabadvip Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Yamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jayanitai Gaura Premanandi Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories unto the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatre Shatarine. So we'll chant some prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev, and then we will continue with a little kirtan until 8 o'clock. Please stay and join us. There's also some prasad being served, so if you would like to honor some prasad, you may help yourselves. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladalaradayine. Praladalaradayine. Hiranyakashipo Vaksha. Hiranyakashipo Vaksha. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimho. Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimho. Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha. Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha. Bahir Nrsimho Hridaye Nrsimho. Bahir Nrsimho Hridaye Nrsimho. Nrsimho Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Nrsimhare Jaya Nrsimhare Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Bhaktivedanta Manor Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan Ki Bhakti Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki So we'll continue with a little kirtan until about 8 o'clock. Yeah. Oh, you're giving class? Yeah? Okay. Maharaji's giving class, so please stay for that. So we'll just make a little space at the front here because you want to sit here? Yeah, okay. That's okay. Stay where you are.
Do you know if there are any Bhagavad-gitas anywhere? Yeah. Just move from the way, maybe like pujaris, the pujaris are coming. Yeah, that's perfect. To be conscious of our environment. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Huh? It's all right. Hare Krishna, can you hear? Thank you so much for coming. We're going to have a Bhagavad-gita class now, discussion, and prayer. Prior to that, we're going to chant some prayers. So I believe on the window over there, there are some Bhagavad-gitas. So if anybody would like, do you want to, David, I want to have a look if there are Bhagavad-gitas, and he will come around and pass if anyone wants to follow while we are reading. First, we're going to chant a prayer called Mangala Charana, which means invoking auspiciousness. So if anyone likes it, you can just follow along and join in. and then we'll chant some more mantras, and then after that we will read from the Bhagavad-gita, the philosophical treatise. So if anybody want to follow along, maybe just raise your hand, and you can get the Bhagavad-gita. So Mangala Charana is in the beginning of the introduction. This is what we're going to sing for a start. Did you find? In the beginning of introduction. So that's in the beginning of the Bhagavad. Did you find? Okay. Thank you. Yes, that's it. So this is what's in Sanskrit, and followed by translation. Timirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavashta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitascha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantha Radha Kantha Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Hari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you for joining in. And so tonight, I don't know how regular are you on the Bhagavad-gita, but I'm just going to assume that many of you have been maybe not coming for so often. Yeah, some of you, and some of you are very regular. So I'm going to try to address everybody's needs, maybe for information, and if for someone is more, so please forgive, and we're going to try to clarify things that we're talking about so that it will be, so that everyone can follow. Today, in the evening, we read one verse of the Bhagavad-gita, which is the part of the Mahabharata, and is a philosophical treatise, philosophical and theological treatise, the most famous book in India. Everyone is familiar with the Bhagavad-gita. It is written in Sanskrit language, and we're going to read the Sanskrit language of the verse. We're reading from the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, verse 11 and 12, because we missed the one on Friday. So tonight we're reading 2 verses. And I think you can maybe some of you can share the random we're listening. So I'm going to read the Sanskrit, the full verse, and if anyone else would like to just read out, and you can follow, all right? So I'll read line by line, and then if you can repeat, okay? Avajananti mamudha manushim tanumashritam param bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Someone like to lead the same? If you're not practiced, I'll just repeat one more time. Avajananti mamudha manushim tanum ashritam param bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. So I'll read word by word and translation. Avajananti, deride. Mam, me. Mudha, foolish man. Manushim, in a human form. Tanum, a body. Ashritam, assuming. Param, transcendental. Bhavam, nature. Ajananta, not knowing. Mama, my. Bhuta, of everything that be. Maha Ishvaram, the supreme proprietor. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Vasudeva, who appeared as the son of Vasudev. This is the meaning of this prayer, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And it is also a first line of the great book called Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes the activities and the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavad-gita is the book that was spoken by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here, in this book, we have practically ABCs on spiritual life, but also the ultimate conclusion. So this is a summary of a theology of bhakti, bhakti yoga. This 9th chapter is a very important chapter. It's called the most confidential knowledge. It is situated in the heart of Bhagavad-gita, which is 18th chapter. And this 9th chapter is describing the bhakti yoga, or the means by which we can attain the supreme. And as Krishna himself describes, this knowledge is the most confidential of all knowledge that he has so far elaborated. So now we are on the chapter, on the verse 11. But this chapter, the first verse describes, Krishna describes that this is the most confidential of all spiritual knowledge, because in the beginning, Krishna described the knowledge of the soul, which is a confidential knowledge, and then the knowledge about the material world and the relationship of the soul with the Supreme, which is more confidential. But the most confidential knowledge is the knowledge about actually relationship of the soul with the Supreme and the activities of the soul in relationship to the Supreme. Krishna in the beginning of this chapter described what is the qualification of a person who can receive this most confidential knowledge. Because it's not that everybody can understand. And the first qualification is, Krishna explains to Arjuna, he says, anusuyave, which means because you are non-envious. So when we want to practice spiritual life, to be non-envious means that we are not really hoping to gain anything in this material world or feel that we are missing on something that someone else has. And this is normally when people become envious or jealous of others because they feel they lack something they need to gain, and I don't have it and someone else has it. And this is actually the last of 6 enemies that are described that are enemies of the soul or spiritual life, and the other 6 are lust, greed, anger, illusion, madness, and envy. So a person who is free from these enemies of the spiritual life, they can actually hear and understand the most confidential knowledge. And the second qualification is described in the verse 3 of this chapter, is the faith or shraddha. So when we approach the Supreme, we must not have any material expectations, and also we need to have faith in the message, in the message of the spiritual knowledge. Just like any knowledge, if we want to find out about anything, we must have some sort of faith that the person who is trying to get this knowledge to us is going to actually teach us something, and we must have faith in this person. So, and it is very practical qualification, actually having faith. It's not just having faith blindly, but actually having faith that I have a body of knowledge that has been coming down in a disciplic succession, in the succession of teachers from the time immemorial. This knowledge is written in Sanskrit 5,000 years ago, so it's been passed down generation to generation by the process of Guru Parampara, where the spiritual teacher is also practicing what he's teaching, and in this way he's able to purely transmit the knowledge in an unadulterated way. So we're very fortunate to have received this knowledge from Srila Prabhupada, who came to the West from India, and he belongs to the tradition of Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and who is translated and given us basically like a cream, the essence of knowledge, so we don't need to do too much research. And it's not actually just this book, but Srimad Bhagavatam that we mentioned, it's got 18,000 verses. So if you want to know more, you can just study your whole life and you can find out so much more about great details of this spiritual science. But the shraddha or faith is a confidence actually. Sometimes it's difficult to translate Sanskrit terminology because Sanskrit terminology very much is part of also a culture which is in some ways maybe different than what we are used to. So a lot of language is also culturally conditioned. So shraddha, when you say shraddha, it's not the same like faith in something that we might not experience, but it's a confidence. And also that this practice of bhakti yoga is not just having faith in something that will come maybe after we die or later on, but actually it's directly perceived immediately. And Krishna explains this. Susukam kartum avyayam. This knowledge is very performed with happiness. And this is something which we can directly perceive on the spiritual platform when we apply ourselves with faith and when hear and actually apply ourselves in the process. So these two qualifications for understanding the spiritual knowledge transcendental have been described in the beginning of this chapter. And now we're discussing chapter 11, the one that we just read in Sanskrit. So I'm going to read the translation by Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of ISKCON, and his purport to this verse. So translation. Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in a human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. This is Krishna speaking directly to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. From the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The Personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishvaras, controllers, and one appears greater than the other. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him is a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers undoubtedly, but in the material and spiritual world, both in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishvara Parama Krishna, and his body is Sachid Ananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here Manushim because he is acting just like a man, a friend of Arjuna's, politician involved in a battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways, he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Sachid Ananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature also. Sachidananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. Gopal Tapani Upanishad. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language. Tam ekam govindam. You are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Sachidananda Vigraham. And your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss and eternality. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, it's full of bliss and knowledge. There are many so-called scholars and commentators of Bhagavad-gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore, he is called Mudha. For only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. Nor do they know that the appearance of Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world is a manifestation of his internal energy. He is the master of the material energy. As has been explained in several places, Mama Maya Duratyaya, he claims that the material energy, although very powerful, is under his control, and whoever surrenders unto him can get out of the control of this material energy. It is a soul surrendered to Krishna who can get out of the influence of material energy. then how can the Supreme Lord, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the whole cosmic nature, have a material body like us? So this conception of Krishna is complete foolishness. Foolish persons, however, cannot conceive that the personality of Godhead Krishna, appearing just like an ordinary man, can be the controller of all the atoms and the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The biggest and the minutest are beyond their conception, so they cannot imagine that a form like that of a human being can simultaneously control the infinite and the minute. Actually, although he is controlling the infinite and the finite, he is apart from all this manifestation. It is clearly stated here concerning his Yogam Aishvaram, his inconceivable transcendental energy, that he can control the infinite and the finite simultaneously, and he can remain aloof from them. Although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears just like a human being, can control the infinite and finite, those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they completely surrender to him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord. There are many controversies between the impersonalist and the personalist about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative text for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary man. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 1st chapter, when the sages headed by Shonaka inquired about the activities of Krishna, they said, Kritavan kila karmani saharamena keshava, ati murtyani bhagavan gudha kapata manusha. Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being, and so masked, he performed many superhuman acts. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:120. The Lord's appearance as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on the earth. When Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands, but after the prayers of the parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. As stated in the Bhagavatam, Vabhuva Prakritim Shishu, he became just like an ordinary child, an ordinary human being. Now, here again, it is indicated that the Lord's appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, also it is stated Arjuna prayed to see Krishna's form of 4 hands, Tenaiva Rumpena Chaturabhujena. After revealing this form, Krishna, petitioned by Arjuna, again assumed his original human-like form, Manusham Rupam. These different features of the Supreme Lord are certainly not those of an ordinary human being. Some of those who deride Krishna and who are infected with the Mayavada philosophy quote the following verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam to prove that Krishna is not just an ordinary man. Aham sarveshu bhuteshu bhutatma vastita sada. The Supreme is present in every living entity. We should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava Acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instead of following the interpretation of unauthorized persons who deride Krishna. Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his attention to the Archamurti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshipping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are those kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, everybody is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. There are so many impersonalists who deride temple worship. They say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to temple worship? But if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple or in the deity? Although the personalist and the impersonalist will fight with one another perpetually, a perfect devotee in Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality, he is all-pervading, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Although his personal abode is in Goloka Vrindavan, and he is always staying there by his different manifestations of energy and by his plenary expansion, he is present everywhere in all parts of the material and spiritual creation. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you so much for patiently following. This was a quite long purport. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to actually have time to do the next verse. The next verse has a bit shorter purport, so we'll see in the end. So we'll try to go through this verse now. So avajananti. Avajananti means they ride, but ava means down. Just like the word you heard, avatar, right? Everyone is familiar with the word avatar after the movie. Avatar is actually a Sanskrit word which means the one who crosses down. So ava means down, and tarat means to cross. So when Krishna comes, he comes with his many avatars, which means he comes down in this world, from the spiritual world. And this is the same beginning of the word ava, which means down. And ava, together with jananti, to know me, means they underknow me or underestimate me. They people, mudha, Krishna explains here mudha, or mudha is a stupid person, or Krishna is using very strong words here. Someone who is foolish, or like Srila Prabhupada also mentioned, mudha is also mentioned as ass or animal in Sanskrit literature. Someone who is practically like on a not very developed spiritually cannot understand this knowledge of avajananti. When they hear about Krishna, they cannot conceive the spiritual truths about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he says, in particular, Krishna says, Manushim Tanum Ashritam, means Manushim Tanum, the body of the man, when I accept. So Krishna appeared on this planet 5,000 years ago in the land of India, in Vrindavan, where he displayed many transcendental pastimes. So he walked on this earth in a form of a human being, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is completely transcendental to this material world. So that's why Prabhupada describes in many ways, he's quoting the Shastra, where there's a description of the nature of the Supreme, and his body is Satchid Ananda, that the Lord has a transcendental body, which is not like the body that we experience. You know, we take on material bodies that are created, they grow, they dwindle, get ill, and then they die. And then basically the soul who inhabits the body, which is made out of these elements, out of material elements, the soul passes on and it changes the bodies in this material world. But when the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, comes to this world, he comes for the benefit of the souls, out of his mercy and also by his transcendental energy. And he takes a form of a human form, but his body is it's different. He doesn't take birth like all of us take birth by our karma. So Supreme Lord is described as Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. He is eternal among many eternals, which means among, and eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. Eko, the one who is maintaining all of the many other ones. So there's a one Supreme Lord and many souls, but the difference is that that one Supreme Soul, he's maintaining all these many other souls, and we are subordinated to that Supreme Personality of Godhead. And his form is Sat-Chit Ananda, which is Sat, eternal, Chit, full of knowledge, and Ananda, full of bliss, as opposed to Asat Achit Nirananda, which is this body. It is temporary, it is full of ignorance, and it is full of misery. So bodies are sort of, even though we try to enjoy ourselves through these material bodies, actually the body is giving us ultimately a lot of misery. There is action and reaction always. But we are actually seeking pleasure because the nature of the soul is also Satchidananda, and we are also seeking this eternality and pleasure and knowledge because this is the nature of the soul, but we're doing it in a wrong way in the material world. So the way we can actually reach this, what we are looking for, the eternal blissful knowledge, and our true nature, is by actually connecting to our source, who is full of bliss and knowledge. So Krishna, he regularly comes to this material world, regularly, in terms of universal time, and in terms of our time, it seems like a many, many years, but actually, in terms of eternal time and this world, how it functions, which is controlled by the relative time, Krishna comes all the time. He comes regularly every kalpa, every now and then, to try to cut it short, to not to get into the incarnations and Krishna's different purposes when he descends to this world, so which is the avatars, which are very many. As described in Srimad Bhagavatam, then just like there's so many waves in the ocean, there are so many avatars who descend to the material world just for the benefit of our conditioned souls. So having come to the human form of life, it is a very special opportunity for the soul to actually understand this knowledge and to ultimately get freedom from this conditioning of the material world. And that's why we have this transcendental knowledge. And previous to the verse 11, the Prabhupada mentions here, in the beginning of the purport, that Supreme Personality of Godhead conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation. And Krishna is describing in this in the verse 5, I believe, and the 4. Yes, in the verse 4, from the verse 4 to 9, Krishna describes his position in relation to the material world, and how he is just by his will, everything exists and everything is conducted within this material world. And there is a description of incarnations of Krishna, which are also you can see in some of the artwork. Vishnu incarnation, he just by his breathing, all the innumerable universes are created. So some of these descriptions are a little difficult to conceive or understand if we are thinking within our material limited knowledge. So it is important when we approach the spiritual knowledge and this information to not to take many things from our own experience, but to try to hear and try to understand that some of the statements seems inconceivable, but we cannot conceive with our material mind some of these concepts. But if we hear from the Shastra, and if we apply some of these in our life and practice by engaging our senses, purifying the senses, this is the way to actually come to the same platform that Krishna is, which is the transcendental platform. And on this, when we actually we can actually experience this in our practice, and we can actually get the understanding of this. And it is a different sort of a consciousness that is achieved than just by trying to adjust our mind and because the mind is limited, but the spiritual consciousness comes from within the soul. And this is something that devotees can actually directly perceive by the practice of bhakti yoga. And Krishna wants us to know him. He says in the Bhagavad-gita that janma karma cha me divyam yo janati tattvata tato mam tatato gyatva vishate tadanantara. And that one who knows the transcendental nature of my activities and divine nature of my activities and appearance, after leaving this body, they do not take birth in this world. They go back to me. So this is something that we should really eagerly try to understand. And the science of spiritual life is described from many different angles, to try to understand this, that the Lord is transcendental always to the material nature. That material nature is actually one of his energies. Krishna, Supreme Lord, is that Srila Prabhupada mentions in one of the quotations, is situated in Goloka Vrindavan in his transcendental spiritual abode, but at the same time, he is present everywhere. So he is present everywhere by his energies. So just like the fire is situated in one place, but is emanating heat and light around. So these are inherent energies. In the same way, Supreme Lord is situated in his transcendental abode, but all the creation, all the existence is just part of his multi-energies. So this is the relation. And this is how we can understand by some material example some of the principles, because we have some experience, and to actually understand some, to say like the inconceivable spiritual truth, we are given analogies and we are given something that's within our experience, and to understand the principle of the spiritual. And then we can actually accept it, because it does make sense, and we can imagine that if in this world certain phenomena exist, like the sun or the fire, or like Krishna gives an example in the verse 6, just like the sky is present everywhere, and the wind is blowing within the sky. It does not blow outside the sky. The sky is kind of surrounding everything, encompassing everything. In the same way, Krishna encompasses all the creation, all the existence. So everything exists within Krishna. And so this is a description of God. In many ways we can try to understand by reading the transcendental literatures. So Krishna creates, maintains, and ultimately everything is annihilated and then created again. So there's a cyclical turning of events So it's not that it's created at one point in time, and before that we don't know what had happened. And then from there on, it's eternal. No, in the Eastern or the Vedic worldview, time and creation is of cyclical nature, as opposed to the linear, which is more like kind of Middle Eastern, where the spiritualities of the world also come from the Middle East or from India. So these are the different conceptions. So cyclical time, which means that creation, maintenance, and destruction, this cycle which we also experience, is something that is going on from the time immemorial. And this is the concept of eternity as well. But the soul, which we also experience, is constant in this life, even though so many changes are happening. Soul is not changed. Soul is the consciousness of all of us that we are also experiencing. We are conscious of who we are, or ourselves, and the changes that are happening to us. But actually the soul is non-destructible, as also Krishna explains in the beginning of the Bhagavad-gita in the second chapter. The first confidential knowledge is about the nature of the soul. So we gradually can understand that we who are minute souls, we are eternal. The Supreme Soul is also eternal. We who are also conscious, we have consciousness. The Supreme Soul is also conscious of everything. Just like we are conscious of our body, Lord is conscious of everything. And Ananda, we are seeking happiness. The Supreme Lord is full of happiness. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. So some other points that are mentioned, that Srila Prabhupada is mentioning, is that this all-pervading nature, the Lord is also then expanded in his different energies, in his different avatars, and his different features. Also as a super soul, as a super soul within everybody's heart. So actually, we are we are the closest. Our closest person that we have is the Supreme Lord, and He sits in our heart. It says in the Bhagavad-gita, also explained that Krishna says, "From me comes knowledge, memory, forgetfulness, and knowledge." So remembrance. So actually, some of the faculties that we have, that when we get up, sometimes we forget. Like if we've been traveling or we've been tired or something, we wake up in the morning, and I don't know if this happened to you ever. Like you kind of wake up and you don't know where you are and who you are, what you're supposed to do. And then the memory kind of gradually comes. So some of these actually, it's, like a lot of these unknowns is a subject of study of psychologists and etc. But Krishna says he actually plays a part in our own psychology. He gives us memory, he gives us remembrance. He also gives us forgetfulness. Sometimes it's very painful. We go through some painful experiences. And Krishna is very kind. He help us to forget some things that are very traumatic. Like even we forget our past lives. Because, it would be very traumatic. It would be very confusing to be able to remember all the past lives. So it's also, it's the mercy of Krishna. Krishna is looking after his eternal part and parcel. Krishna says, "I'm the father of all living entities." So just like a loving father, Krishna is always looking out for the welfare of his sons and eternal part and parcels, so souls. Unfortunately, we've come to this world because somehow or other we've made the decision that we wanted to experience this world separate from Krishna. This is another topic, but but this verse is describing that some people, even though Krishna appears and his nature is transcendental, and he appears in the human form, which Srila Prabhupada quotes the verse Kapata Manusha, and he's like a pretending to be a human being. But he comes for the benefit of souls who actually, just by understanding the transcendental nature, this is what we've been hearing. If we can just understand that Krishna is transcendental, his body is transcendental, he comes, performs these amazing activities which are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, about how he appeared as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. And he appeared first as a Vishnu form and a four-handed, and he then took the form of a human. And he was transferred to Gokul in the home of Yashoda and Nanda. So all of these details, they are described. But all of these activities are not like an ordinary activities of a human. So this is something important to understand the difference. In this way, we can gain confidence. And by practicing Krishna consciousness, all these activities become very wonderful to hear about. So in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here, the sages of Naimisharanya are asking Sutta Goswami, please tell us about these activities, wonderful activities of Krishna. We are not going to get tired by hearing this, so please tell us. We're not going to go away and become bored. Because when we understand how wonderful are the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will want to hear more and more, and it will be so amazing and wonderful. It will be just awe-inspiring. So more we become purified in our consciousness, more we can actually appreciate the descriptions of the spiritual nature of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, about his activities. And just by hearing this and understanding them, we become purified. We actually awaken our eternal relationship that we have with Krishna. So he's a very dear, intimate friend of all living entities. And this is something that we actually seek. We actually seek love and acceptance and understanding in many different relationships. But soul actually has eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord in one of the rasas, which is described also in the beginning of the Bhagavad-gita. So we can be completely satisfied and get all of the attention and love that we're seeking in this world in relationship with the Supreme Lord, because this is where we came from, and this is what we're really seeking. We actually become happy and satisfied in awakening our relationship with Krishna, more we are going to be able to have good relationship with everybody, with other souls. Srila Prabhupada also mentions here that we can actually see all the living entities as a temple of the Supreme Lord, because Super Soul is also present together with the soul. So just you can imagine how much more superior the relationship in the world would be, or in our life, if we could really understand and respect that, and treat other people and other souls as Krishna's eternal servants and the super soul who is there. And Srila Prabhupada says here, as quoting the verse from the Bhagavatam about different levels of devotees who are neophyte or in the beginning, perhaps they have not developed the consciousness of the presence of the Lord everywhere, but they are following the tradition. They come to the temple, offer obeisances to the deity form. So Krishna's form in the temple is also Satchid Ananda. He is present everywhere, but particularly he takes the form of the deity and to accept our service. And because we cannot see the spiritual form, out of his kindness, Krishna accepts the form that we can actually see, and accepts our service. So this is of course, it's a great difference from the materialistic person who can actually appreciate that Archa Vigraha, or the form which is worshipable of the Supreme Lord in the temple, is actually the Supreme Lord who has appeared in this form. And his body is completely transcendental. So Krishna's body is Satchit Ananda as well. But also, the more advanced person is the one who can also see Krishna. It's not only in the temple, but is also present in everybody's heart. And Srila Prabhupada explains, if you remember, we were reading in a purport, that the verse that's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, it says, Archayam eva haraye pujam yatstradaye hate na tat bhakteshu chanyeshu sa bhakta prakrita. That the prakrita, or the materialistic devotee, is the one who comes to the temple, worships the Lord, but he does not know how to treat other people and other devotees and others. Which means that, and Prabhupada says, yes, just like we are respecting and offering respects to the Lord in a temple, we have to also understand that Lord is present in everybody's heart. And the way how to actually do this worship it's very important to understand the differentiations, because in India there are many different misunderstandings, about an interpretation. So that's why it's really important to understand this knowledge in a disciplic succession. How Srila Prabhupada, who is the Acharya in this disciplic succession, is explaining. So it's important to hear and try to really understand how we are. And the second verse describes the middle devotee, who is more advanced, is Prema, Maitri, Kripa, Upeksha. So this is the 4 ways how the more advanced devotee. Prema, he loves the Supreme Lord. Maitri, he makes friends with devotees. Kripa, he is very kind and compassionate to the innocent people who are not envious. And Upeksha is the avoidance. He avoids the envious. So even though Lord is present in everybody's heart, if someone is envious or dangerous, we actually give him a favor by avoiding them because they would just make offense. So what's important is to have the consciousness, right consciousness, and also be practical in the world. And the spiritual science is very practical as well. If you read and study the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad-gita and other scriptures. So Krishna says that the mudas, the ignorant or foolish people, they deride him when he comes in. So actually, even Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita that we should not disturb the minds of the materialistic people, but still out of compassion, Srila Prabhupada has come to the West and he's given this knowledge, and many people who are spiritual seekers are taken advantage. But this is a confidential knowledge, and we can teach it to people who are open and want to know. And if someone is offensive or foolish, they cannot understand, because automatically they're, by their decision, are not able to, because they're, like Prabhupada is, the verse is saying, Param bhava majanatu mama bhuta mahesha. They cannot know Krishna's supreme transcendental nature, which is of the Lord of all living entities, the control over all existence. It's just, it takes some qualification, like we mentioned, to actually start on this path. So if someone is very foolish, very offensive or envious, so these kind of people should be avoided. And the verse 12 describes more about that. So we should be reading this verse, but I think because we're running a little bit of time, I would like to just leave it here, and then we can maybe discuss if anyone's got any questions. Would anybody want to ask any questions or make a comment? We've covered a lot. I've talked a lot, so let's hear some of the comments if you want to share.
So, you know, chapter 9, verse 4.
Okay.
How you read out how Krishna says, all beings are in me, but I'm not in them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why we say we are not God, even though God, we got God present in our Paramatma?
Can you say this again, because there's some commotion going in the background. So Krishna says,
Chapter 9, verse
okay.
4, where he says, all beings are in me, but I'm not in them.
Okay.
Is that why we say, like, even though God is present in our body, we are not God?
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes. Krishna is present as a super soul. So in the 13th chapter as well, it's described that this body is like a field, and we are the knower of the field, but we are not the only knower of this field. Krishna is also knower of this field. So the Krishna, who is present as a super soul in everyone, in everybody, he comes with the soul. So the soul is on this journey in this world, and he's always accompanied with the super soul. So he's always with us as a witness to our activities. There is also, following this chapter, is Udasina Asinam. Udasinavat Asinam. Krishna explains, I'm just going to see where this verse is, where he says that I am sitting, and I'm sitting in everybody's heart, just like Udasinavat Asinam. This is the verse. This is verse 9. I am detached from the material world, seated as though neutral. So he sits with us, and he does not get involved with our activities. He sits and he observes our activities. He helps us to remember what our desires are. And Krishna is completely detached, and he gives us all the chance to turn to him to actually want to find out about who we are in our relationship. But God is super soul. He's a one supreme, and we are one little sparks. We're like little sparks of little souls. So we are not God because we're not supreme. We know that. We can experience, but but at the same time we have the same spiritual transcendental nature as God. So this Satchidananda, this is the nature of the Supreme Lord and also of the soul. So it's simultaneously one and different. Just like this drops of water in the ocean are also salty. It's also, you can say it's ocean, but it's just a drop, and the big ocean is also salty. It's the same nature.
So why then in 4 does he say, but I am not in them?
Yes. When Krishna says that I am, he's a transcendental to the world. So he says this, that let me see this verse. Sarva Mastani Sarva Bhutani Natahim. I am not situated in them. He's situated transcendentally. He's all pervading, but he's not. Why doesn't he says I'm not in them? Is that he is never touched by the material world. So this is the point. That just like, for example, you can have a flower. Srila Prabhupada gives this example. You can have a flower, and you can smell the flower, but you're not touching. You're actually smelling the flower by the power of of the smelling. Okay, so the flower is separated, so Krishna never touches the material world. And that's why material world is described, material nature is his external energy, Bahiranga Shakti, the energy which is external. So Krishna is situated in it internal, but when he's present just by his power. By his power.
When you say he sits in our heart, that's just his power.
Yes. It is him by his power. It is his it's called super soul, or a form of Vishnu. It's a form. It's a very kind of esoteric theology, but it's described like this. Krishna expands. It's one of his expansions that pervades this world. The Srimad Bhagavatam describes this. Vadanti tattva vidhas tattvam yad jnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. The Supreme is understood in three features. Brahman, which is the impersonal form, Paramatma, the super soul, and Bhagavan. So this form of the Lord, of the feature of the absolute truth, who is situated in the heart, is called Paramatma, the super soul. And he is it's like a secondary feature, who is Sat and Chit. So we've described the Sat, Chit, Ananda nature. The nature of the Brahman is Sat, which means eternity. The nature of Paramatma is Sat and Chit, eternity and the consciousness. And the nature of the Bhagavan is Sat, Chit, and Ananda, so all the complete Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality. So he expands as a super soul, and so he's, I have to say, he's transcendentally situated.
So could the analogy of the ocean and the drop,
Okay.
could I say that the ocean is not in my heart, but the drop is in my heart?
No. The analogy of the drop was about the nature of the soul and the nature of the Supreme. So the nature is the saltiness, or the Satchidananda is the soul is also, which is like a drop in the ocean. But we have our individuality. So this is also one of the features of the, nature of the soul, is that it's conscious and it's full of knowledge and bliss. And we are persons. So in the same way, the Supreme Lord is also a person. But he's he's unlimited person who is conscious of all existence at all times. So this is the analogy of the ocean and the drop of ocean.
So it's like infinite.
Yes.
Just a tiny bit.
Yes. So we're like a sample God, little sample, and we have our consciousness, we have our faculties, different senses. They're actually spiritual. We get these bodies with eyes, nose, ears, touch, like different faculties, because the soul is actually has senses, has spiritual senses. But when we are covered over in the material world, we think this is who we are, but we're just a vehicle. The material bodies are just vehicles for the soul, whose nature is actually we have senses, transcendental senses, and the Supreme Lord also has transcendental senses, which are never touched by the material world. So, does that make sense?
So is it like, so when he says, I'm not, but I'm not in them,
Uh-huh.
so that's more of a materialistic way, I'm not in a materialistically way in them. But
Yes.
internally kind of
Yes.
Paramatma.
He is, he's all pervading as Paramatma, but he's never touched by the material world. So, when he appears as a human being, like 5,000 years ago, when Krishna appeared as a historical person, his body is also not material at all. He's always Satchidananda Vigraha, always spiritual body. He does not take on this matter.
It's like an energy which is transferred into a form of a body, but it's not a real body.
It's not, yeah, it's not like made out of matter. It's not made out of the matter that we experience. He appears in his eternal form. And actually, when Srila Prabhupada mentioned that how, in the anthropomorphic maybe approach to understanding of religion, maybe many theorists would say, well, you're just projecting your own ideas and creating a form of God because you're human, and that you think that God is like you, but actually it's the other way around. So it's like that, that actually human form, even though it's kind of full of misery, it's very short. We come here, we live a very short time. And most of the time we're kind of miserable, struggling. It's not very like a desirable kind of body, like normally in a Vedic time, people perform sacrifice so they can have, they can go to the heavenly planets and get these bodies that live for a long time, and they have more capacity to enjoy life. But at the same time, then we have an opportunity to practice spiritual life, and especially in this age, now that Lord Chaitanya has given us process of chanting Hare Krishna mantra, just by this very simple process of chanting Hare Krishna, the vibrating, the transcendental sound, is actually described. The sound Mahamantra is the Krishna's sound incarnation. So Krishna can appear in a sound as well. And when we chant and we vibrate the sound of Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, it is actually Krishna appears in this sound. And we have direct contact. We can directly then contact Krishna in this transcendental platform and become purified. And then we can understand, because we need to raise our consciousness from the materialistic consciousness that we are covered now with the modes of nature. This is another discussion about modes of nature, but the whole point is that we can directly perceive the Lord, and by practicing Bhakti Yoga, by chanting Hare Krishna, it's very easily achieved, even in this human form of life, which is very short and very, very difficult. Especially in the Kali Yuga, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, if you read the first canto, where in the same place where the Srila Prabhupada has mentioned this verse, that the sages are asking Sutta Goswami to describe about Krishna's activities when he appeared as if human being, pretending to be a human being actually. They also describe the state of the planet and on this Kali Yuga, how people are very shortly lived, always disturbed, their mind is kind of all over the place, and especially now in a digital age, we know how, we can't concentrate, like there's always so many distractions. But nevertheless, just by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, even us, we're being given special offer, because we're just at the end of this cycle. Kali Yuga is like the winter of universal time, and it's a very, very difficult age. So we've been given a special bonus that chanting Hare Krishna, we can actually reach the highest supreme spiritual achievement of love for Krishna, which is very, very difficult to achieve. After many births, he said many practitioners, they take birth many times, many bahunam janmanam, many births, ante jnanavan mam prapadyate, one who actually knows, they surrender to Krishna. And in this way, it is very easy to cross this external energy that we, by taking shelter of Krishna, we can easily transcend this material world. And Krishna is helping us by giving us these directions, and Srila Prabhupada is very kindly instituted these centers, temples, where we can hear about the knowledge, and this was one of the purposes when Srila Prabhupada founded ISKCON. He wrote down the purpose of the ISKCON movement, and one of these purposes is to educate people in spiritual science. And that's why these places exist, and it's very amazing that we have all the facilities that we can actually hear about Krishna and make our life successful spiritually. And Krishna says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my activities and my appearance in this world, after leaving this world, he does not return. He comes back to me, which means that he attains eternal life. So this is the greatest welfare activity for everybody. We're trying to help people, but ultimately the best way how you can help someone is actually help them to become free from this cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, and all the misery, because we don't belong here. We actually belong to this eternal world, and we seek that ultimately, because unless we come to this connection with the Supreme Lord, we will always be frustrated, because it's like a fish out of water. Fish, if it's not in the water, it will never be. You can give it all the facilities, but there will be always something missing, and what's missing is Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada said, just add Krishna. Just continue whatever you're doing, just add Krishna and be Krishna conscious, which means that whatever we do, it's very easy to be Krishna conscious, because Krishna is everywhere. And we can remember that from the morning when we wake up, when we cannot see unless Krishna has given us the power of seeing. And unless Krishna has created the sun and the moon, and we cannot see, or electricity. It's also Krishna's energy or fire. So you can always remember it. In our later chapters, Krishna explains how we can remember him. Krishna says, I am the sound in the ether. So we can't even hear the sound unless we have the ability to hear, or the facility of the hearing faculty, and how the sound reverberates through the ether. So we're actually living in a very wonderful world, and it's a magical what's happening, but we're just kind of like complacent. We cannot appreciate. So Krishna consciousness is really, really appreciating the wonder of life and wonder of existence, and us, ourselves as soul, and the presence of the Supreme Lord, who is our eternal friend and lover. And that we can actually, when we raise our consciousness in this way, we will be able to love everyone else as well in the best way. Because other souls are also very dear to Krishna. So when we love Krishna, we will know how Krishna loves everyone else. And then we'll be much better to each other, So, like, a lot of things are accomplished with Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Ether is it's a material element, a subtle material element. It's listed in the Bhagavad-gita as one of the subtle material elements. So, earth, water, fire, air are four gross. Air is subtle. So all of these are more subtle. Earth is the grossest. Then you have water, and then you have fire, then you have air. These are material elements. Then you have ether, so it's more subtle than air. And it says that the sound actually goes through the air, through the ether. Yeah. No, through the air, through the ether. It's a subtle material element. It's more subtle. So the ether is, air is situated within ether. So ether, and the verse number 6 in this chapter, Krishna gives an analogy. Says, Yatha kasha manostitam, no, vayu. Yatha kasham vayu stitam. Just like Akash is a ether. I think you maybe know the word. Some people are called Akash. Yeah. Uh-huh. I don't know what you're referring to, but Akash is it's a name for ether, and also, yeah. So the ether is all pervading, and the wind is within, the air is within this Akash, and then you have other subtle, that Krishna describes as subtle elements, which are the mental faculties, the mind, intelligence, and ego. It's like a subtle element that we use. And so we can. It is described in a Bhagavatam when there's a description of creation. And then actually the elements, the gross elements, they come from the subtle elements. And so from ego comes intelligence, from intelligence comes mind, from mind comes ether. And then ether, the air, like that. So when the world is created, is description of creation or Genesis in the Vedic, explanation, that these elements they exist in the world, in the universe, and they are like they form an egg around the universe, is like an egg. So gross and subtle elements, but when they originate, they come from the subtle and they manifest like that. This is a whole new discussion, and we are coming close to the beginning of the Arti soon. So, you want to more? Okay.
When you mentioned the process of life and death,
Okay.
somebody said to me that we have done something bad, we are going against Krishna, that's the reason we came into this mathematical world.
Okay.
And there's this process of 8.20 years of life.
Okay.
We have to go through before we get this human
Mm-hmm.
body. And then it depends what we do after we get this human body,
Mm-hmm.
where we can go.
Yes.
For the amount of good deeds we do.
Yes.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare এই নাম গায় গোরাচন্দ মধুর সদে এই নাম গায় গোরাচন্দ মধুর সদে হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে হরে এই নাম গায় গোরাচন্দ মধুর স্বরে এই নাম গায় গোরাচন্দ মধুর স্বরে হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ হরে 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 রাম হরে Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Na Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Bala Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Bala Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare গায় গোরাচাঁদ মধুর সরে এই নাম গায় গোরাচাঁদ মধুর সরে হরে কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে হরে এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচাঁদ মধুর স্বরে এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচাঁদ মধুর স্বরে হরে কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে রাম 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 হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে রাম 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে রাম রাম হরে হরে কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম হরে রাম 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 হরে হরে राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे राम हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,